Welcome to Third Eyesight. Do you see spirits? Do you hear things? Do you want to talk about it? I'm your host, Juan, and I'm sharing with you my experiences with spirit, as well as interviewing folks who feel comfortable sharing their experiences with spirit. Let's get to it. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Third Eyesight. I am your host, Juan, and I am based in New York City. I'm so excited to launch this podcast because I've been thinking about an idea for a podcast like this for quite a while, and it took a recent experience for me to understand that this is something that I really want to do and need to do. I think to remind you, the listener, as well as myself, that there is more to life than just what meets the five senses. And that there's something extraordinary that so many people around the country, the world experience, and that's supernatural. And, I grew up hearing so many stories from family members and family friends about the experiences they had, and they really had nothing in it for them to share those stories. So anyways, I am so excited to launch this podcast, to have you listening in, and I want to thank you, the listener, for wanting to listen in, for wanting to be curious. Maybe you are listening because you believe in the supernatural, or you believe in spirit. Maybe you're listening because you don't believe, and you're just curious about what this wacky-ass guy, Juan, is going to share on this podcast. Maybe you're kind of on the edge of believing. Maybe you're more doubtful about it, but open to it, and that's fine as well. All approaches are 100% welcomed, and I am open to being challenged. I'm open to discussing. So if you ever want to be a guest on this podcast to talk about these things with me, literally be my guest. I am just always curious about this topic of the supernatural. I have been since I was a child. I remember at the age of 3 or 4 thinking about death and thinking about what is it like, and having panic attacks about it. And not gonna lie, I still have panic attacks about it once in a while. I still have a fear of death. Like I said, I grew up listening to stories about my family and family friends seeing, hearing, experiencing spirit in many different forms. So the reason that I am starting this podcast is a story that I am about to tell you. This occurred to me, I believe it was mid-September. This year, mid-September. I was doing a group tarot reading with my best friend and her very good friend, family friend, who is a tarot card reader. Now, I was learning tarot throughout the pandemic, and I'm still learning it, and I still have more to practice in terms of tarot card reading. But this person, I'm going to call her Madison for her own privacy. Madison has been reading tarot for several years, and she's quite gifted, and I totally admire her for her skill and her, just her openness to channeling spirit through tarot card readings. And Madison is the reason that I wanted to start tarot, which I will get into in another episode on Third Eyesight. So in this group tarot reading that involved the three of us, me, my best friend, and Madison read the two of us. And then Madison asked me towards the end of our group reading if I could read her tarot cards. And I told her, I'm going to go very slowly if I read you, because I'm going to have to look at my little guide that I've created for myself for what each card means as I read them to you. So I don't know, maybe this is going to take too long. Let's just do it another time, or I'll do it over the phone or in text, and instead of doing it here on Zoom, especially with my best friend watching, and I don't want to bore her. She said, no, don't worry. You need to practice, use me as a guinea pig, and let's go. Let's do it. So I got my tarot cards, and I lay them out in the Celtic cross formation, which is the formation that I prefer to use for doing my readings of folks. Madison is probably, at this point in mid-September, maybe the 5th or 6th person that I have read tarot cards for outside of doing them for myself. So I'm very green when it comes to tarot card readings. But I know that when I have read friends of mine and practiced with friends, that they have come out pretty accurately. So I am reading for Madison, and I ask her, as I ask every person that I do a tarot card reading for, to ask a question that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. So questions like, how will I? How can I? What will be the best way for me to? What is the reason that I am XYZ or I am doing XYZ? So she asked, how can I grow in my career and with money? So in the reading, I told her, like, what I'm getting from the cards is that you have to be your authentic self through your work, that you might need to take on a side job to fund your dream and don't shy away from that need. And then in a certain position in the Celtic Cross, which is the one that has to do with your attitude in the matter of the question, the Strength card came up. And the first thing that jumped out to me when I saw the Strength card is my knowledge of it being the card that represents the sign of Leo on the zodiac. So I immediately ask Madison, is there someone in your life who's significant, good or bad, who is a Leo? And she starts tearing up and says, it's Ryan. And I'm also protecting Ryan's identity by using the name Ryan. But I did know about Ryan within the last year. I know that Ryan was a best friend of Madison's, whose life was taken away from him about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And I know that he was quite the rocker dude and kind of quiet, maybe had some personal struggles of his own. That's all I knew about Ryan. So Madison tells me it's Ryan. Ryan was a Leo. So I just started telling her things that were just flowing into me, and it's that, well, Ryan wants you to heal from your grief for him. It's time to heal from your grief over Ryan's passing. It doesn't mean you forget about him. It just means that you're going to allow yourself to heal, because your grief is taking over your current approach to your work. And Ryan wants you to emulate the qualities that he showed you, the qualities of himself that represented the best version of him. He wants you to use those qualities in your work and emulate him and his soul in your work by expressing those qualities that he so well represented. And she's getting very emotional at this point, and I actually had to close up the reading pretty quickly and go on to the rest of the cards, there were 3 cards left in the Celtic Cross formation I was doing for Madison. And then the Zoom closed because we had a 40-minute limit because we don't want to pay for Zoom. So after that reading on Zoom that I did for Madison, I'm in my studio and I'm minding my own business, doing little tasks here and there. And I get this image in my head of me and my best friend who was involved in the 3-person group reading we did over Zoom. An image of me and her singing out loud in her car to one of our favorite songs, like screaming and singing, like overjoyed, just like one of those like good life moments, right? And I still feel like I am in the same energy space that I was in when I mentioned Ryan to Madison. So I'm getting the feeling that Ryan wants me to tell Madison, hey, Madison, and I'm texting her at this point, Madison, this might sound crazy, but I feel like Ryan wants me to tell you or ask you about a song that you guys had that you shared together. Like, think about, like, you and Ryan, like, you guys sing in the car and laughing while you're singing because it's so ridiculous but so fun and so awesome. Like, do you guys have a song? And she tells me, oh my God, I just bought the album that we both loved, but on vinyl. And I thought, okay, well, that's him trying to tell you through me that, he's trying to tell you, just like he's there. He's there with you when you are listening to that favorite song or favorite album. So she sends me a link to the album digitally and a link to the one song that they really liked. And at this point I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like, I mean, what are the odds? I get this vision of this memory that I have of singing in the car with my best friend. And I feel like Ryan's trying to tell me to tell Madison to ask her about the song. And she tells me she just bought the vinyl version of their favorite album that they had as friends. Now, once I tell Madison that and Madison confirms that there was a special music something between her and her best friend Ryan, I get this headache in my head, and I can still remember it was on the left side of my head, and it was like a bad like a headache. It was like a pain that I got in the left side of my head that then traveled through to the middle of my head. And then I heard from Ryan, and what I didn't actually hear anything, but I get this feeling of gunshot. And I can feel a naggingness. Is that even a word? Like, I feel like Ryan is in the most appropriate and most respectful way nagging me to tell Madison, tell her or ask her or tell her about the gunshot to the head. I tell Ryan in my head, literally tell him in my head, I cannot tell Madison that. She is grieving your loss. She's emotional tonight. And she's on this high about the music that I mentioned to her, that you guys connected over. Like, it's too much of an emotional high right now for me to then ask her about a gunshot to your head. That's insane. And then Ryan keeps pressing. And I'm in my studio alone with my dog, Stella, whom I live with. And I say out loud in my studio, Ryan, I cannot tell Madison that. I can't tell Madison that right now. You need to go. Go and comfort Madison. Go be with Madison. Go comfort her. And then the naggy feeling leaves me. I just don't feel it anymore. So, fast forward to a week later, and I'm texting with my best friend, the one who has been connecting me with Madison this whole time. And I tell my best friend about the message I had for her regarding the song or the music that she and Ryan, that Madison and Ryan had connected over while he was in the physical world. And she goes, "That's crazy. Wow, that's amazing." And then I ask her, "Hey, do you know how Ryan passed?" Because Ryan made me feel, or I feel like he made me feel, like a pain in my head, and I just felt like gunshot to the head. And my best friend says, "Oh my God, I think he was shot in the head." And I'm like, really? And I'm chuckling because it's kind of unbelievable. Like, what are the odds? So she says, "Let me try and," this is all in text, "let me try and find the news article." And I beat her to it, and I found the news article. And I had his full name. It was him. And the news, and with a picture of him. I had seen a picture of him before the group tarot reading we all had. So I knew some of the basic info about that he was murdered and that he was a rocker kind of guy. He had some personal struggles, and I knew what he looked like. And he had tattoos. So I'm looking at this news article now, and I see his picture, and I read the news story, and it says in the news story that he was shot twice in the head. So at this point, I am feeling very overwhelmed emotionally, and two thoughts crossed my mind. One is, oh my goodness, I feel so sad for Ryan that that his soul had to experience this horrific passing. What I would think would have been a terrifying moment. And the second thought I have is, geez, like, why am I being asked to feel these things on behalf of Ryan for Madison? Why is Spirit telling me these things or making me feel these things? Like, why me? And not so much a why me, like, I don't want this to happen to me, more like, how am I, like, worthy enough to experience this gift right now? Like, what makes me so special to experience this? And I start crying because I'm feeling both of these things at the same time. One is sadness and grief for Ryan as he was in the physical world, and the other is this, like, feeling of not feeling worthy, and also a feeling of, like, gratitude, like, wow, thank you for letting me feel this, for letting me feel Ryan and feel these messages. So my best friend tells me, I think you need to tell Madison this. I think it will really help Madison. And I was debating about it in my head, and I was telling her, I don't know. And in the end, I decided, this was on a Saturday night that I found this out. Sunday morning / noon, I decide to call Madison. With Madison's permission, I told Madison, listen, I want to tell you something about Ryan. Can you hop on the phone? And she said yes. So I did, and I told her everything that I just shared to you, the listener, just now. And she was wowed by it. And she said, Juan, what's crazy is I did not start really digesting how he passed until the last 2 months. Now, Ryan passed November 2020. And she told me that she did not really want to process how he passed. And she only started doing it this year, 2021, in the last few months. And she says this comes at the right time. And also, I used to feel Ryan, but I haven't been feeling him very much recently. And this just confirms that he's around me. So thank you. And it gets me emotional to share this story now. And it was the first time I have ever felt a soul really work through me to tell a living soul a message. And that message for Madison being, listen, I'm with you when you hear that song, when you hear that album. This is me. And I think him making me feel how he passed in the best way that he could without making me fall ill in my own studio, that was his way of telling me that, no, this is real. This is real. And especially after checking that news article, like, Juan, it's me. This is real. I mean, it's one thing to have the song or the music album confirmed through Madison, right? But this just, like, set it in stone. Like, this is a real experience. I am really talking through Juan, and you need to know that I am here for you, and I am always, always with you, and my soul is at peace. That's the other thing. When I was feeling Ryan, yes, he was pressing me to share things with Madison, but I never felt like I was in a not good place. I felt like I was in a peaceful place. And I told Madison that. I said, Ryan is making me feel nothing but like he's at peace. And that the struggles he had in this physical world that were mental, that's the gist that I got, or that were just personal, that he is not feeling those anymore. So Ryan is the reason I am launching this podcast, because that experience led me to explore more of this side of me that could be a medium or just is very connected to the spirit world. I don't know quite what's going on. And I'm speaking to you now in October 2021, telling you that I am still exploring this. This is all so recent, but I would love to explore it with you by my side. And in addition to, talking about other things on this podcast that I've experienced in my life, or talking to folks that I know or even that I don't know that I'm meeting through this podcast who want to share their experiences like what I just shared, or other experiences like souls appearing to them in front of them, souls talking to them, souls leaving signs from the other side, going to haunted places. And this podcast, the goal is not to scare people. It's not to make you feel like you're always being watched, or like someone's always around you, like the Rockwell song, someone's watching me. Like, that's not the goal of this podcast. The goal of this podcast is to remind us that there is something out there. There is something around us that is not physical, that is very much alive. And it's a beautiful thing. And if I ever mention like hauntings or ghost tours, which I will, it's not to give anyone the heebie-jeebies, although it did give me the heebie-jeebies, the experiences I've had, like on a ghost tour. But, everything is soul. Everything is spirit. Like when you watch a ghost video on YouTube, which I do all the time, it feels creepy to me. I'll speak for myself, because they're playing creepy music and it's like, like, no, I'm not into that music, but that's why it feels creepy. But I can tell you when I've had some soulful experiences, like truly soulful experiences, they don't feel creepy at all. When I've gone to a haunted house, yeah, I felt a little creeped out. But I think that's because the framing of the situation, which is usually a ghost tour, is coming with a creepy vibe. So I don't know. I feel like the intention you go into something with matters so much, and the frame of mind you go into it with matters so much. I do believe, and I guess I might as well just go into it now, the things I believe in and what you should know about me as you start to listen to this podcast is, number one, I believe everything is spirit and everything is soul and energy. I believe energy is neither created nor destroyed. I mean, that is considered a law of physics, I believe. Don't quote me on that because I am not good with science, but I know that somebody said that. Was it Einstein? I don't know. I did not like science in high school. But energy is neither created nor destroyed. And I believe that our energy lives on. How? I don't know. And I don't want to think too hard about it because then I freak myself out. But I do know it does live on. And I know I feel it a lot. And I felt it a lot as a kid. And I feel it now as an adult. And I also believe that there is a God, capital G-O-D. I don't believe that God is a man. I don't believe that God is a woman. Although it's nice to think sometimes that God is a woman as a creative force with that, feminine energy. But I really believe God is gender non-binary. I believe God has no gender. I believe God is an energy that infiltrates us all. It's like the gasoline in a car, although if you're eco-friendly, which I would like to be even more of, let's say it's the electricity in your electric vehicle that's charging that vehicle. It is just the energy that charges us all, that makes our heart start beating and keeps it beating until the day we naturally pass. That is what I believe God, G-O-D, capital G-O-D, to be. I do not pray to or believe in any evil supreme being. I'm very much against things like Ouija boards. I believe Ouija boards attract low energy beings because then you are approaching connection with the spirit world as if it's a game. And I do not pray to or believe in any demonic entities. I believe that is extremely dangerous. I believe there are low energy spirits. I don't know if I can call them demons. I don't know if I believe in an evil supreme being that is the antithesis to capital G-O-D God. But I know that low energies exist. And we have to be very, very careful how we channel and how we invite the spirit world into our lives. That's something I do not mess with. And I'm going to go into a little bit of that in a future episode about a store that I visited that for me had low energy that came home with me once, and what I felt I needed to do to cleanse myself and my family's home of that energy. So more on that later. So that is what I believe in. I do love my crystals that I'm looking at right now on my windowsill, and I soon need to get Actually, I'm soon getting some shelving storage for them. I believe in burning white sage. I actually am very excited because I just started purchasing my white sage from a Native American business. I believe in New Hampshire. I have to look into more detail on it because I forget where they're located. But I will share information on that on my Instagram as well as on this podcast soon once I receive that white sage. And I also burn Palo Santo. I love burning incense just to like help me feel good. I believe in the 7 chakras and that they are energy centers that we have to take care of in our body. And I believe we are all connected. I believe we are all one. So when one person makes a mistake, a big mistake that affects humanity, it has its ripple effects. And it is something that we all have to live with and that we all have to pay the consequences for. I truly believe that. That's what I mean by we are all one. We all affect each other. We all impact each other. Our words matter. Our actions matter. Each person's life matters, and each person's soul matters. So that's what I believe in a nutshell. All these things that I just told you, that's my belief system. 4 or 5 years ago, if you would have told me I was reading tarot cards and buying crystals, I would have told you I was a crazy heathen. I did have a born again, a Christian experience in high school and college, and I'm no longer that, although my belief system is very rooted in Judeo-Christian values and beliefs. So I do believe in Jesus Christ as a teacher, as a mentor. I also believe in the Virgin Mary as also a teacher and a mentor. I believe there are 2 very powerful, powerful spirits. But I believe that every belief that brings you to the best version of the highest vision you have for yourself, as Neil Donald Walsh says in Conversations with God, which I am probably misquoting, anything that brings you to that state of being for yourself, that amazing state of being, and works for you, is a path to God, capital G-O-D, or lowercase God, G-O-D, or gods, whatever you believe in. I believe anything that is encouraging your highest good is your path to divinity and to absolute well-being, spiritually and in all sorts of ways. So that's the end of this podcast. Thank you so much for listening to my talk about my beliefs as well as why I'm starting this podcast. And I just want to thank you for listening. And I want to thank Ryan. I want to thank the soul of Ryan for choosing me to channel a message for his best friend and an amazing, amazing person, Madison. Thank you so much, Ryan. And I'm thankful to Spirit for making this podcast happen. And let's see where it goes. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. And I will see you next time on Third Eyesight.